Hello, everyone. My name is Shubhrokanti Karmakar Shuntu, and I'm the Communication Chair of ACL Rolling Review Initiative, which is commonly known as ARR. Today, I'm going to talk about the overall ACL Rolling Reviews process, the framework, how the reviewing is done, how the authors should see it, how the reviewers should be participating, and so on. But before I start, I would like to mention that this presentation is heavily inspired by a presentation made by Mausam during the ACL 2023 ARR session. So without further delay, let's get started. So what is ARR? So ARR is a centralized reviewing service for top-tier conferences under ACL. As we know, every year, ACL organizes multiple conferences, and as NLP researchers, we submit papers to these conferences, which goes under double-blind reviews, and we get acceptance or rejection decision at the end of the conference reviewing cycle. But each conference has their own organizing committee, program committee, senior area chairs, and reviewers. What ARR is trying to do is to centralize this reviewing process. And what we mean by centralizing is kind of decoupling the review cycle from the acceptance decisions. So ARR is only going to implement the first part of the overall reviewing process, which is providing authors with reviews and a meta review for their submitted paper. But ARR is not going to give you a decision on the acceptance to a venue. That is the job of the program committee of a particular ACL conference. Why do we really want to do ARR? Well, reviewing is critical to scientific progress. And reviewing is a lot of work, but it is also the backbone of scientific research and its progress. So we want to track the life cycle of the paper, and then we want to minimize the load for reviewers so that the same paper getting submitted to different conferences and the amount of reviewing work that is repeated, we want to get rid of that. But at the same time, we want to track the life cycle of a paper and the associated review process. And why do we care about ARR? Well, in 2024, the ACL, EACL, and NACL main conferences will use ARR as the sole submission system. So if you are planning to submit in any of these conferences, you have to go through this ARR process. Other venues may also adopt ARR as well. Okay, so what is new? If you think about submitting to a conference as an author, the ARR system is not very different from the traditional conference system. But things get interesting after the reviewing process. The initial part of the reviewing process is complete. After the reviewing process of your paper is complete, you can either now revise and resubmit your paper to ARR in the following cycle. This is different from traditional conferences because in the conference, you just submit once, and then you either get an acceptance or a rejection. But in case of ARR, you can revise and resubmit, or if you are happy with the meta reviews and reviews, you can just commit your paper to a participating venue with the reviews and meta review provided by ARR. Another nice thing about ARR is that you can submit every 2 months, and then you can submit and revise your paper as many times as you want. Another cool feature of ARR is basically you can retain the previous round reviewers and meta reviewers, or you could ask a fresh set of reviewers and meta reviewer with proper justification. So you probably see that this is more like a hybrid journal conference reviewing process system that helps you revise and resubmit as many times as you want, but then you can commit to multiple conferences and you can reuse the reviews, and we can track the life cycle of the paper reviewing process. All right. So to really understand what is going on with the ARR, let's look at a typical conference review process. What exactly happens there? So it starts with the authors, right? And then the authors write a paper, and then they submit it to a conference, and it is first sent to the peer reviewers, and the reviewers actually review the paper, and then the authors are contacted with the initial individual reviews from the reviewers. And after that, most of the conferences in NLP gives the authors a chance to do a rebuttal. And in that phase, the authors kind of tries to clarify any misunderstanding or that on the part of the reviewers, or like any questions that was asked by the reviewers. So after this rebuttal process is done, then the peer reviewers kind of finalize their individual reviews, and the paper and the individual reviews are sent to a meta reviewer. The meta reviewer is more of a senior person who is often the area chair or the senior area chair. They look at the paper again, they look at the associated finalized individual reviews, as well as the author rebuttal. And then they write a meta review summarizing the pros and cons of the paper, mostly like what are the strengths of the paper, what are the weaknesses or like opportunities to improve for the paper. And then this meta review, the finalized individual reviews, as well as the paper, everything is forwarded to the program chairs and senior area chairs, who kind of discuss all the submissions individually and then make decisions on the acceptance of a venue. And after a decision is made, the decision is actually forwarded back to the authors. What ARR does is decoupling these reviews from the acceptance decision. As you can see from this picture, the whole process can be divided into two parts. The first part we call the peer review process, where the authors have submitted the paper and it goes through the traditional peer reviewing and meta reviewing stage. And the later part is an acceptance decision to a particular venue that is mostly taken by the program chairs and the senior area chairs. So some of the problems with the current system is like you cannot revise your paper based on the reviewer comments. Of course, you can do a rebuttal, but you cannot change your paper. And the best you can do is to submit, take the reviewer comments, revise your paper, and submit to a completely new conference where it goes through a completely different set of reviewers, and the entire process repeats itself. And the review process is pretty long. Right now, it is averaging around like 4 to 5 months. So in terms of reviewing, the reviewers keep reinventing the wheel, and the borderline papers suffered the most, because we know the borderline papers can go either way, and if they get a rejection, they have to go through the entire reviewing process again. And sometimes there is a big chunk of randomization in this process, and that can often frustrate the authors as well. And you cannot track the life cycle of a paper because there is no centralized system, and it's hard to actually measure reviewing quality, impact of reviews, and how authors are responding to the reviews and everything. And the next conference is often 6 months away, so the authors have to wait. But with ARR, you can submit every 2 months. So let's see what ARR does to improve the system. So it again starts with the authors. Then the authors submit a paper to ARR reviewing system, and the peer review process is conducted. So when we say peer review process, it is basically the reviews and the meta reviews that happen, including the author rebuttal stage for the ARR. So whenever I mention peer review process from now on within the framework of ARR, that basically means the author reviewing, the peer reviewing process, then the author rebuttal, and the meta reviewing, everything is completed. And the authors are provided with the finalized individual reviews as well as the meta review. That is the peer review process definition for ARR. So after this process is complete, the meta review and the individual finalized reviews are sent back to the authors. Now the authors are in control. As you can see in the ARR process, the authors are at the center of the whole framework. So now the authors can make decisions. So if they are happy with the reviews and meta review, they can commit to a conference. But if they are not, then they are going to revise their paper and resubmit to the peer review process again. So they will revise the paper, submit to the peer review process, and then they will get another set of meta review and individual finalized reviews. So this process continues until the authors are happy with reviews and meta review. So they keep improving their paper, or they can also request new reviewers and so on. But if once they become happy with the reviews and meta review, then they can select a partner venue and they can commit their paper to that venue. And what we mean by committing, so this is also another kind of submission, but in order to disambiguate between the ARR submission system and the conference submission system, we say that after the reviewing process is completed, you commit the paper to a venue. With the paper, original paper, the individual reviews and the meta reviews. And then the venue program chairs and the senior program chairs will discuss the submissions along with the sticky reviews and meta reviews that has already been completed by the peer review process by ARR. And then they have a decision, right? If the decision is accepted, then congratulations to the authors, and that's it, you celebrate. But if the result is a rejection, then it's again a decision point for the authors, like what they want to do. Well, they have mainly two choices. The one choice is to select another partner venue and then commit the paper again to that venue. But the good thing now is they don't really have to go through the peer review process from scratch. The same reviews, the same meta review, along with the same paper is submitted just to a different venue program chairs and senior program chairs who can make an independent decision for that particular venue. Or the authors might feel that they want to further revise the paper and make it even stronger before they commit to a venue. So that basically means they again come back to the ARR review process, they submit to a new cycle, and the whole process is repeated. So as you can see from this picture, the left part is basically the ACL rolling review service. That is what ARR is going to provide. And the right part is the job of the venue, where once the reviewing process is completed and the paper is committed to that venue, then the venue chairs will decide on the acceptance decision. One more thing I would like to highlight is that you can still simulate a traditional conference system using this rolling review and committing framework. It's just that the reviewing process has been decoupled from the conference decision process. And the authors have more control over what they want to do with their paper, as well as the meta review and the individual reviews they receive. All right, now let's get back to some of the logistics issue with ARR. I'll be mostly talking about the ARR cycles, the anonymity issues with ARR, multiple submission policy of ARR, resubmission policy of ARR, limitation section requirements for ARR, withdrawal policy from ARR, how do you serve as a reviewer, and how can you request for recognition of service, And finally, I will introduce you to the ARR team. So cycles. So authors can submit in each cycle, and that cycle happens every 2 months. And the cycle dates are 15th of February, April, June, August, October, and December. So you have 6 submission cycles within a year of ARR. And ARR now guarantees that the reviews and the meta review will be completed within 2 months. That is before the next cycle starts. So there is no overlap between 2 ARR cycles. The next cycle starts after the previous cycle is completed. And authors can submit and commit their paper any number of times until they get accepted to a venue. But of course, they have to abide by the anonymity requirements. Okay, now let's talk about the anonymity period. There are 2 different anonymity periods associated with the ARR reviewing system, and each of them are 1 month long. And the 2 types of anonymity are, one is ARR anonymity, and the other is the venue anonymity. Because now we are decoupling the reviewing cycle from the decision cycle. So we have 2 different anonymity periods. For ARR anonymity, a paper can only be submitted or resubmitted to ARR if no de-anonymized preprint has been posted in the month prior to submission. And for the venue anonymity, it's kind of the same rule. A paper can only be committed that has been reviewed by the ARR already, and it can be committed to a venue if no de-anonymized preprint has been posted in the month prior to submission. So, and to post a non-anonymous preprint, the authors must withdraw their paper from ARR submission. You cannot post a non-anonymous preprint while your paper is under review at ARR. And anonymity must be maintained for both ARR submission as well as commitment to the venues. Anonymity should be maintained during the entire review process and until the meta reviews has been posted. So this is a question that often comes, like, how do I know my reviewing process is completed? So for ARR, that basically means you have received the meta review as well as the individual reviews, both of them. And for venue anonymity, it is the process is not complete until you get a decision. Okay, to better understand the anonymity period, let's consider some examples. Let's take EMNLP 2023. The paper submission deadline for EMNLP 2023 was on June 23rd of 2023. Now let's consider a hypothetical case. Let's say you submitted a paper to ARR on February 15th cycle. That's pretty early in terms of committing to EMNLP 2023, but let's consider this case. And then you receive the meta review within 2 months. Let's say it's April 12th. Now, it's okay to do the following. For example, if you want to publish a non-anonymous preprint on April 14, because on April 14, your paper is no longer under review at ARR. You have already received the meta reviews and the reviews on April 12. So that's fine. And then you can also submit to EMNLP 2023 directly on June 23rd without using the ARR reviews, because you are now directly submitting to EMNLP 2023. You have maintained the anonymity of the direct submission policy at EMNLP 2023. Then you can also do the following. For example, you can publish a non-anonymous preprint on July 21st. This is the commitment case where you can still commit to EMNLP 2023 on August 22 of 2023. Now, because you are again not violating any of the anonymity requirement, because on July 21st, your paper is not under review at ARR, and you are submitting a non-anonymous preprint on July 21st, which is 1 month ahead of the commitment deadline of EMNLP 2023. That is also fine. What is not fine is you publish a non-anonymous preprint on May 23rd to 28th, sorry. But then again, you submit to EMNLP directly on June 23rd. That violates the venue anonymity period because you are not using the ARR system, you're submitting to EMNLP directly, so you have to abide by the anonymity period requirements of EMNLP 2023. Okay, let's consider another example. It is still the EMNLP 2023 paper submission deadline of June 23rd. And let's assume the authors now submit to ARR on April 15th cycle. And then they receive their meta review within 2 months, let's say on June 13. Now, the authors can still publish a non-anonymous preprint on June 14 because the paper is no longer under review with ARR on June 14. So it's okay to do. And it's also okay to commit to EMNLP 2023 from ARR on August 22, because that is definitely 1 month after June 14 when the preprint was published. But what is not okay to do is you publish a non-anonymous preprint on June 14 and then submit to EMNLP directly on June 23rd. That violates the anonymity requirements for the EMNLP direct submission. And also, it is not okay to publish a non-anonymous preprint on July 25. And then you commit to EMNLP on August 22, which is within, that basically means you are committing a paper within 1 month of, in less than 1 month of publishing a non-anonymous preprint, which violates the anonymity rule of the committing to the EMNLP venue. All right, multiple submission policy. So ARR precludes multiple submissions. So you cannot submit a paper to ARR that is already under review at some other place. So now let's talk about 2 different cases. One is ARR plus other venue, and also ARR plus commitment. So in terms of ARR plus other venues, is the standard rule like it covers all the journals and the referred and archival conferences and workshops without exceptions. So including TACL, computational linguistic, SIG-IR, AAAI. If your paper is in submission in any of these venues, so you cannot submit to ARR. And in terms of commitment, during the active review cycle of ARR, a paper cannot be committed. So a paper can only be committed to a particular venue once the reviewing cycle at ARR is complete. And by completion, we mean that you receive the meta review as well as the individual reviews for your paper. And then the other interesting case is a paper cannot be submitted to ARR between commitment to a conference and a decision or withdrawal. What that means is, for example, if you got your reviews for your June 2023 cycle, you cannot do both of committing to EMNLP and submit a revised version to the August 2023 ARR cycle. Okay, what about resubmission? When it comes to resubmission, there are certain requirements that ARR makes. The first one is you must link to the previous submission. We want you to do this because we want to track the life cycle of a paper, and we want to know what the previous cycle reviews and the meta reviews were and how you are changing or revising your paper to improve it and address the reviewers' comments. And then each resubmission should provide a response to the previous round reviews, and the submission must be modified based on the feedback. You cannot just directly submit an identical copy of the previous submission without any modification. The authors may choose to add an additional author with proper justification. For example, if there were new experiments done, if there were significant rewriting of the paper, where a new author helped, so that can be added with proper justification. And authors can also request new reviewers and meta reviewers with proper justification. If the authors don't request for new set of reviewers and meta reviewers, the paper will go back to the original reviewers and action editors. Okay, let's talk about the limitations section. So many conferences, especially the ACL conferences, now require this. And ARR also encourages a dedicated limitation section. It is not enforced at this moment, but it is highly encouraged. And this should be included at the end of the paper before the reference. So after the conclusion and before the references, and it will not count toward the page limit. So right now the page limit for full papers is 8 pages and for short paper is 4 pages. So your limitation section can go into the 5th page for short paper and 9th page for the long papers. Withdrawal policy. If authors, first of all, authors can withdraw their paper anytime, but if the authors withdraw more than 48 hours after the submission deadline, they cannot resubmit until the second following ARR round. That basically means if you are withdrawing your paper 48 hours after the submission deadline, you will miss the next cycle. So here is an example. You submit to February 15 cycle, you withdraw on February 20, which is obviously after 48 hours of the submission deadline, then you cannot resubmit your paper on April 15 cycle. You have to wait till the June 15 cycle in order to submit, when you can actually submit. All right, so for reviewers, if you want to serve as a reviewer, first of all, thank you very much. And we are always looking for highly qualified reviewers to ensure a good quality peer review process. So if you want to serve as a reviewer, please write to us at support@aclrollingreview.org and provide us with the following: your name, link to your DBLP profile, and your open review ID. Currently, we require 5+ papers in NLP-related venues from DBLP, and at least one of the papers should be in the last 5 years. If you are selected as a reviewer, you should receive reviewing assignments from the next ARR cycles if your expertise matches any submission. So this is really important because reviewer matching in ARR is an automated process. We do not do it manually. This is done through an automated algorithm, and the matching is based on your papers that you put on public access in Open Review, DBLP, and Semantic Scholar. So make sure you have an updated Open Review, DBLP, Semantic Scholar profile to make sure you are getting assigned the relevant papers for review. Request for recognition of service. So a lot of time, the reviewers and associate editors, they need recognition of service letters, and we are happy to help you with that. You can ask for a letter of recognition for your service, for your service as a reviewer, for your service as an action editor, or even for your service in terms of the ARR reviewing process in any role. Please write to us at support@aclrollingreview.org again. Mention your full name, your current affiliation, open review ID, and the ARR cycles for which you are requesting the letter. The cycles are important to mention because we have to verify whether you have actually performed the review and completed it so that we can provide authentic information in the letter. Finally, I want to provide an overview of the ARR team right now. We have 4 ACL Rolling Review board members. We have 6 editors-in-chief, 5 technical staffs, 3 communication team members, including me, 1 editorial staff, 1 ethics chair, and 3 mentorship team members. And we are looking for more communication team members because as we move towards the next year, all the at least 3 conferences we know are going to be on ARR, and we will need more communication team members to provide support. For contact, you can always go back to the ACL Rolling Review website, and you can reach out to us at support@aclrollingreview.org. And we also have presence in Twitter and Facebook, and the Twitter handle and Facebook link is provided here. And please follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more updates. If you have questions, feel free to write to us, feel free to comment, and like Twitter and Facebook. Thank you very much.